Welcome to A Breath of Fresh Career. This is season 2, episode 17. I'm joined here by Carl Oliveri, who's the chief revenue officer at Robin. This guy, my God, for those listeners that don't know, I'm a recruiter by day. And I want to say Carl and I were just chatting about it. It was probably like 16 years ago or so where he and I first met. He made a transition from one industry, got into technology. He became a VP of sales at salary.com. I think you started off, Carl, as like a director, if I remember. So he was running like the inside sales team. And man, Carl and I can remember we built the company, I don't want to say like I have a wing on my house because of salary.com. But I mean, we made a lot of, I was working for a different firm, so they were taking all the commissions. But it was a lot of fun. Carl's a father. He's a father of 4 kids, all around amazing guy. This guy really values his employees, right? So I love the fact that he's on a breath of fresh career. I want to tell a really quick story as an intro. Carl may not even know this, but I still use this story with new client companies that I'm kind of like air quotes around my head, training on how to manage the hiring and recruiting process. You might not even know you do this, but like, dude, it's been, I don't even know, 16, 17 years, and I'm still using this story today. So one of the things that Carl knows is he always responds back to candidates. So every candidate out there writes a thank you note. Every single candidate writes a thank you note, email. This guy literally takes the time to reply back to that. And it doesn't need to be long. It could be, Bill, thank you so much for the note. I too enjoyed our meeting. I look forward to next steps. Or the flip side, there's no real reason to sugarcoat things. He tells them what's up, because I really feel, and I'm not trying to kiss your butt here, but I really feel like you are trying to help candidates, whether it be to progress in the current interview process with whatever company you're running, or better them for the future. And it really, man, it goes a long way for me as a recruiter, and it goes a really long way for the candidates. I know that sometimes it's humbling, right? Sometimes people don't like to hear denial, but it helps them in the long run.
So first of all, thank you. And I don't take it as you kissing my butt. I will just say as a fact, I still think about our relationship and the way we gelled trying to staff salary and then companies beyond that, that have popped up in my career. And it really is about just finding the match between the organization and the person. It doesn't do anybody any good to sugarcoat anything, or it's got to be a match on both sides if it's going to work. And I think the reason you and I have gotten along so well for so many years is because it is about making sure that there's no BS. It's either going to work or it's not. There's a match or there isn't.
Yeah.
And if there isn't, it doesn't mean that you're, weak in certain categories, although I will call that out. It just may not be a match for the current position. And you never know whose path you're going to cross later on.
Oh, so absolutely.
I pride myself on my network.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, we can find Carl today at the helm of, he's the head of revenue, chief revenue officer at a company called Robin. Robin, and I'm going to read this really quickly because I had to do a little digging, but Robin is the first workplace platform that puts people before places. Essentially, it's a platform that helps companies of all sizes manage hybrid or remote work. Kind of a big deal right now because 90% of people are working remote right now, but it's so ironic to me that Carl is the CRO of a company whose tagline is puts people before places, because that is Carl, 100%. So can you just tell us in your own words about Robin and what you guys do and how it works?
Sure. So we're a workplace experience software. And right now we're helping a lot of companies, as you can imagine, we're helping a lot of companies navigate the return to office. The office place should be a benefit for employees and a resource that they can use to make the best use of their time. So what we do is through the use of an interactive map, we will help employees reserve desks, reserve conference rooms, figure out where they need to sit or where they want to sit on a specific day or week. They'll use our map to find coworkers, who else is in the office, who isn't in the office and working from home. They will use it to navigate the office. If you need to find a certain section, where's the marketing department sit? Where's the HR department sit? On the back end, what administrators do is they watch the utilization of the office, and they can choose what to make available for what groups of people, whether it's desks or conference rooms, and they can watch capacity limits.
Okay.
So as you know, right, flexible work all up is something that is a very hot topic right now.
Yeah. I can remember, so I had a short hiatus out of recruiting, working for it was like the third largest ad network. It was Commission Junction, who got acquired by ValueClick, which became Conversant, which is now Epsilon. It was huge. And we had an office in Massachusetts, and we had an office in, on the East Coast, and an office in Manhattan. And I would mostly go into the Manhattan office just because I could jump on a train. But I think at the time it was like 2 or 3 floors, 47th and 5th. I didn't, and I wasn't in there all the time. So there were recognizable faces that I knew, but I didn't really know who everyone was. So it was so important. I knew my little bubble, but to me, it was so important. It would have been so important to really understand, all right, I'm working on Best Buy as a brand, and this name, Carl Oliveri was mentioned to me, where is, let me go talk to him and see, cause he's selling something else into Best Buy at the same time. Let me go talk to him about who he's talking to and what they're interested in, see if we could kind of partner and come in together with a solution that's best for the client. So, man, this is awesome. And I'm sure with regards to the segmentation and the ability to determine where people could work, especially with kind of still the re-entry into the office space, maybe every other desk is closed. I don't know.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's part of what we will help administrators do is figure out what do you want to make available? So is it every other desk? How does it, how do you separate the groups? Who do you allow in the office and not allow in the office? We developed some functionality around what we call an office pass. If you think about coming out of COVID, every company is trying to classify their employees. Who wants to work remote full-time? Who wants to work some sort of hybrid schedule? Who wants to work office full-time? And being able to navigate not just who's able to come into the office, but where they're allowed to sit and where they're allowed, how do you keep distance between folks where you need to do that in the past? That's exactly what we do.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So I want to jump into all the good stuff about a breath of fresh career, but what have you been doing lately with the fam, with the kids, for fun? What's
Oh man. Yeah. So I have a 24-year-old, 23, soon to be 24, a 21-year-old. We just got back from Vegas for his 21st birthday, which was fun.
Boy.
We took him out to Vegas for his birthday. So that was a lot of fun. And then I have twin 17-year-olds who are on the golf team.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it's funny, they're at that point where there's, their friends and school and everything comes before having time to spend with me, but they're both on the golf team. So I decided to sell my motorcycle. This is the first year I've taken up golf, and I forced them to golf with me every week.
That is awesome. How are you hitting them?
Horrible. Oh, I'm terrible.
Really?
I'm getting better. Yeah. I'm going to take lessons all winter because I'm sick of them beating me, but yeah.
So really, not to digress here, but I was kind of like a big golfer in high school, same age as your kids. And then thereafter, and I got into the golf. I grew up in the golf industry, cutting green, mowing greens, cutting cups, emptying garbages, keep me away from a wet hamburger bun.
Yeah.
I could freaking gut a deer, but as soon as a wet hamburger bun hits my bean boot, I'm like, we actually just joined a club. Actually, my wife Cindy got us a family membership for Christmas this year, and this past year. And it's a first year kind of being like at a private club, which is like amazing, right? I mean, I love it.
Absolutely.
And our son is 14, and he goes every day. Like he's there every day in the summer. He's beaten me a couple times already at 14,
man, I
at a
love
9-hole match or whatever. I might give him a stroke or two, or like let
Of
him
course,
take another, breakfast ball, but man, really quickly, I got fitted for irons. It's our anniversary in 2 weeks, and Cindy, she's a great wife. I mean, like private golf club membership and new irons
Seriously,
for my anniversary, like score. Hopefully you're listening to this, honey. No, she got me new irons for our anniversary. And you want to hear, this is what a podcast is all about. Really quickly, I thought it was our 20th. So I spent like 20th anniversary money. And it's our 19th.
So now you're going to do it again next year.
I have to do it again next year. I'm such a dummy. So I actually went to this place called Club Champion, and it's like this professional fitting center, professional club center. And oddly enough, I think it was started by a bunch of guys that own a VC.
Yeah.
Because all these guys play golf, right? And they're like, we need a great place to go get fitted, get new clubs, the newest, latest, greatest technology. Carl, it was amazing. You should look it up if you're really like getting serious about golf. A proper fitting goes a long way.
Oh, yeah. And I definitely will, this being my first year. So I had to buy clubs. So I bought Mizuno irons, and then I bought, I think it was a TaylorMade driver. I have a Callaway 3-wood, zero loyalty to any brand in golf, because I don't know any better. I knew I wanted kind of a middle of the road iron. I think as I get a little bit, like I am officially addicted to the game. I absolutely love it. Yeah. And I personally, I'm the type of person that I can't stand to suck at something. So I'm at the driving range 3 or 4 times a week. Like I play at least once a week with the boys. This winter, I'm going to spend a lot of time taking lessons, and want to get a little bit more serious and better, I should say, at the game. I'm going to.
Well, next season, you shoot down in Connecticut.
I would love that
work meeting. And I'll have you out at the club here. It's awesome. It's really awesome.
I would love that. Fun. Yeah, I promise not to rip up too much turf.
Yeah, nah, I don't care. That's what it's there for. Yeah. But, so back to a breath of fresh career. It's awesome. So that place is called Club Champion, by the way. And granted, you're gonna spend $400 more.
Yeah,
you're gonna. But let me tell you something. They build these clubs to spec. Okay, they put you in the iron head you need. They size you up on the shaft, the right shaft. They put you on those TrackMan. They determine what your club head speed is. I mean, it's unbelievable. Loft, lie. They X-ray the shafts to see which direction they should go into the club head, so you get the optimal performance. I mean, it's nuts. It's like
nuts. So much going. I love
it's
that.
So much.
I will take you up on that.
You should, because you should, because if you're getting into it, man, dude, honestly, if you shave off 2 or 3 strokes around because you have the right gear, that's a big deal.
Yes, it is.
It's a big deal, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to a breath of fresh career. Tell us about the role you play as Chief Revenue Officer at Robin.
Sure. So I work with any revenue generating function in the org. So marketing, business development, sales, account management, and our partnership / channel department. Okay.
Is partner or channels, is that a large department? Is that a large focus on how you're getting in?
No, actually, we've been almost 100% direct. We are just starting to build out our partnership and channel program. I just hired or promoted somebody internally recently to run that program for us. And we've always had a lot of requests, but we always wanted to also, we were, as a small org, it's tough to divide resources and figure out, we always felt, since I've been there, we felt like direct sales was the best path. We are at a position, and we're growing so fast now that we can entertain the channel and partnerships and try to accelerate that as well.
So is it vertical agnostic, or is it like all verticals? You guys could sell to everyone. You could sell to Coca-Cola. You could sell to IBM.
If you've got an office, if you've got resources in that office that employees could benefit from, will be a fit.
Awesome.
So it's really every industry.
So going back to your days, and I want to say it was UPS, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
How'd you get your start in enterprise software? What made you?
Oh, man, I was at a point with UPS where I had been promoted up through the ranks, surrounded by a whole bunch of great people, but I knew, UPS is still one of those companies that you could go and spend an entire career with.
Yeah, you could retire there. Yeah,
you could retire there. But I was at a point where I knew I had to make a decision. I was going to stay with UPS for the rest of my career, or at the time, that was around 2004, 2005, SaaS had just started to take off. And I got an opportunity to work with a company called salary.com, and they took a shot on me, quite frankly. They had seen my experience at UPS running sales teams and specifically phone centers and lead generation type folks. And so they initially hired me as director of inside sales, which meant I was working with the lead generation team, the business development reps.
Got it.
And that's how I got my start. And then I started, I got promoted a couple times. They promoted me to vice president of sales, and yeah, the rest is history. We went public. Oof, man, way back when you could go public as a small company.
Yeah.
And it's been a fun ride ever since.
That's great. The upward progression in an organization is always really fun to see. I've been obviously keeping tabs on your career since we met. And I love seeing, the progress as well. We as success, I want to categorize us both in the same group, but like successful humans, right?
Yeah.
Learn a lot as we grow. Like, what do you wish you had known, when you got into the industry about what you know now? Like, if you could apply those principles.
Yeah. I think the thing I really wish I knew back in the day, regardless of industry, just in this profession, is how to control your emotions through the peaks and valleys. I tell people all the time, like, look, your career is always, it should be, depending on what you want to do. If it has anything to do with revenue generation, sales, account management, it should be up and to the right in terms of your skill set and your performance. And, you could start selling and dealing with bigger clients, selling bigger deals, but you're always going to have these peaks and valleys in between. And if you ride those emotionally, the highs you get really, really high, and the lows you get really, really low and down on yourself, and you can't figure out how to level out your emotions, you may be successful for a year, you may be successful for 5 years. I promise you are not going to make a career out of this.
Wow.
And I really wish I had known that earlier, because I ran the risk of burning myself out on multiple occasions before I learned that.
That is some deep stuff, man. And it's something I struggle with,
Yeah.
I take what I do really seriously, man. And I wear my heart on my sleeve. I work my butt off to try to provide for client companies and candidates alike. And it's I wish I had better control with my emotion and just kind of let it go. But it's like being an addict, man. It's like being a freaking addict,
Yeah.
you get real high and you get real low, and then you got to get high again, and you got to get low again. It's just like, it's not a win-win. It's just not a win-win scenario.
But what's interesting, so you're exactly right. And what's interesting in what you just said is you care so much that you're always looking at what you're doing, how you're doing it. And when you're low, I tell people this all the time, when you happen to hit one of those valleys, if you're beating yourself up and you're trying to change everything at once, that's not sustainable. It's not going to work. It gets you out of what your comfort zone is, and in a lot of cases gets you out of who you are as a person. You have to trust that you're doing the right things, and you're tweaking a couple things here and there, and you have to use the people around you to determine that. But trust that you're doing the right things, that you have the right intent, and it will turn around. I hate sports analogies, but I'll use one.
Please.
If you're playing baseball and you're in a slump at the plate, the worst thing you can do is press. That's the worst thing you can do, because you're going to start swinging at pitches that are out of the zone, and you're going to get out of your natural rhythm. That's not how you break a slump, right? It's, you just start to tweak a couple little things here and there and trust that you're doing the right thing, and eventually you work yourself out of it. I
Yeah.
don't know if that makes sense,
It
but
totally does.
yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I like golf so much.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you could, hit a 6 or a 7 or a snowman on a hole. It happens to all of us. You throw a couple in the water, or you lose a couple in the woods.
Happens
And
to some of us more often than
it's
others.
the next hole. You put that, I work real hard at just putting that hole. Hopefully it's not the first hole, because it makes for a long day, long round. But you put that hole behind you and you just go to the next one. And it's a fresh start.
Yeah,
I love that.
That mental game, which is really tough part of golf, is very relevant when it comes to any revenue generating function, or really anybody's career.
Your kids are probably amazing at it. 17-year-old golfers. They probably trust me, they're probably not shooting 7s and 8s on holes.
Yeah, a couple here and there, but they're little head cases too. They take right after me.
I think they all do, right?
Yeah.
So, in the essence of a breath of fresh career, I want to talk a little bit about candidates and interviewing and all that good stuff. So, when you're evaluating, when you're looking at candidates, what are some of the key characteristics you look for when you're interviewing?
I am a big, I really believe people buy from people, right? There's the buyer today is so well educated. The difference is there's a whole bunch of things that are going to make a difference, but what I'm looking for is intellectual capacity, right? How intelligent is somebody? Intellectual curiosity, somebody that is naturally curious. I think coachability, certainly, and integrity. Those characteristics, you can teach people how to sell. You can teach people how to listen, or at least help them get better at listening. If you don't have those core, I would say intelligence, coachability, integrity, and a natural curiosity, you're not going to be successful. I will tell you, there's if you think about the stereotypes that are out there, the egotistical, self-centered enterprise salesperson, that doesn't fly in my
Anymore.
world. It doesn't fly at all. And if you're self-centered and you're somebody that people can't stand listening to, and it's all about you, if I see that or any glimpse of that throughout the hiring process, I don't want it. I've got no time for that. No time for that.
You got to be a team player, right?
Yeah. And I will find ways to test some of that. Like I'll create in interviews, I will create situations where I create some tension, some healthy tension. I'm not a jerk about it, but I find ways to create tension and throw up objections, because I want to see when they're off their game, how are they reacting? I want a true sense of who somebody is.
Wow. That's amazing. I haven't heard that, but I'm sure people do it. They just don't talk about it. But that's awesome. So through your process, okay, you've got, candidates either get presented, or you find candidates, or their resumes are sent in, or I don't even know. We haven't even talked about that. So I don't know how you run the process over at Robin, but are you looking at resumes? Are you going right to their LinkedIn?
Yeah, I go to LinkedIn first. So we have a team of internal recruiters who will screen candidates and send them our way, and they will, we work through a system where they'll send the profile of the person and give me links to their resume and LinkedIn. I click LinkedIn first. I always just want to see the career path. Right.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course. Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot or make you feel uncomfortable, just see how you react.
Love it.
How are those recruiters finding these candidates? Like, what are they? Listen, you and I know this, you might not, but like, I will literally tell you that almost 100% of internal recruiters, man, they don't have time to recruit. They don't really they post jobs. They put jobs on LinkedIn. They might in-mail a couple people with hopes that somebody replies. But they're so freaking busy internally, managing the process, getting them in front of the right people, next steps. It's like they essentially become like administrative folks once a candidate's in the door there. And that's a lot of work to manage the entire process. I give them a lot of credit, but like, How is it working for you right now?
Yeah.
Is it?
Honestly, we're really lucky. We've got such a strong team. Our whole HR department, like they're the real deal. One of our recruiters, the recruiter that works with the sales organization, her name's Nelsie. She's just very diligent about, she really digs in pre-job post to figure out what are we looking for, what are those characteristics that we're looking for, how do I screen for them. She's really open to feedback, and we give her feedback on every candidate she passes, good, bad, or indifferent, right? So, and she's been learning through that process and just does a remarkable job of finding these folks, when not only when we post, but I will say we're extremely lucky where we've been on a growth tear the last couple of years. And I think people see that because there's a lot of people who come to our door who want to work with us. And even before we started posting positions, we had a lot of folks that wanted to seek us out and work with us.
Awesome. That's great. It's good to hear. It's good to hear a success story with a process like that. Father of two 17-year-old twins, 14-year-old son, or, for some of the younger listeners out there, what about other social media outlets? Are you looking at Twitter? Are you looking at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, God forbid? Or is anybody internally looking at those things when you bring a candidate in?
I do not. And I purposely don't. I want to know who a person is. I don't want to I'll take a look at your LinkedIn. I will look at your resume. In my mind, the resume is a marketing document, right? It's meant to get you in the door. There's probably a lot of numbers. I want to see sustained performance. And I will find ways to test how real that is during the interview. Yep. What I don't do is go out and take a look at the social media that I would consider more on the personal side. Now, I'm really open with my social media. TikTok is a perfect example. Like during COVID, I discovered TikTok and made an ass out of myself and laughed at myself trying to do a couple. But I don't need to see that before hiring somebody, and I don't really pay attention to it. Should I? I don't know. That's a different question. Yeah. I don't look at that stuff.
Huge trend. People aren't really, you need to have as a candidate, you need to have a resume. It's essentially a placeholder. It's a placeholder. It's a way to get into a applicant tracking system. It shows the hiring authority you are serious about interviewing and making a change if you've taken the time to put a resume together. But man, literally 90% of the folks that I work with are like, the first place they go is LinkedIn. I generally try to coach candidates, if I'm asked, to have their resume look just like LinkedIn, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Vice versa. Like, put the same stuff, back to you really quickly as the CRO. Sure. Motivation right now. We're just getting through this really crazy. It's a crazy time. That's the only thing only way I can explain it. With COVID, I'm 47 years old, but like, I never once thought when I was a kid that we were going to have to live through a worldwide pandemic like this. Like, people didn't plan for it, obviously, but like, how are you motivating your team right now through this uncertain time, I guess?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And does Robin help you do that as a technology?
Robin as a technology can help alleviate some of the stress of trying to figure out what's going to happen when I go back to the office, or who am I going to be around when I go back to the office. If I'm really picky about who I want to sit around, or I want an area that isn't as fully loaded with people, I can use Robin's map to find an area that is going to be pretty quiet for the day and schedule. So in that sense, it will help an employee manage their anxiety at any level about going back to the office. As far as motivation, I tell the team, back to that analogy of the ups and downs, I tell the team, I'm always going to be harder when we're at a peak and when we're doing really well than I am when we're in one of those valleys. I am very people first, that. I think I have a huge, I really focus on self-improvement, not only for myself, but for the team. And I try to make sure through one-on-ones and just the way we talk to the folks in the company, and we challenge them on they're on them making themselves better and focusing on what they're trying to accomplish. Even though, you've got those day-to-day stresses, you've got to feel like you're working towards something. And part of that intrinsic motivation is knowing that you're getting better, or you're working on getting better at certain areas that you want to address. I'm really transparent about that. I will say, as an org, we have a strong focus on career development. That helps keep people motivated, making sure that you have their best interest at heart, right? And you're really helping them understand where they are in their career, what they need to do to help get to the next level.
Yep.
We listen as an org. We listen really well, and as a management team, as an executive team, we survey the team. We do town halls with the organization. We make sure everybody's heard. On the sales side, we do a really good job of making sure that quotas are set in a way that they're, the salespeople put half their OTE at stake to come to work.
Oh yeah.
They bet on themselves with usually about half of their on-target earnings. It is really important to me that we set goals in a way that are a stretch but attainable. I've seen so many companies in my career that have made quotas so unattainable that it's a demotivator, if that's the right word. I will never have a plan like that. I want them to be a stretch, but I also want to know that they're attainable, and I will never publish quotas unless I believe that they are attainable. And then the last thing I would say is we hold our people accountable, right? So you may say that's kind of weird as a thing that motivates people, but it's more, you have to hold people accountable in the organization for your performers. The people that are actually doing a good job or doing well at their job, they want to know that the folks who aren't doing so well or that are struggling are either getting help or trying to find a position that's better suited for them. It can be a real demotivator to have non-performers just linger.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that about the quotas, because, it's one of the first questions I ask when I'm working with a company about what they're looking for from a sales role. And if they give me some crazy quota where I know what the average order value is and the time that it takes to close the deal, like, it's got to be realistic. As a matter of fact, I have a client company that I'm working with right now that just crumpled up and did away with quotas altogether.
Wow.
The sellers don't have quotas. And I was like,
really?
what are you doing? And he goes, dude, they apply enough pressure on themselves to generate revenue that we want them to sell everything. So they're going to sell whatever they can sell, because just like you said, they're only working, they're getting paid their salary, right? These people historically can't live on a salary. They're used to making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 annually. They can't live on 150K base. You know what I mean? So he's like, they're going to put enough pressure on themselves. And yeah, I mean, like, we have like expectations and an understanding from like a forecasting perspective for the overall organization, but we don't have quotas. And honestly, it's such a shocker to candidates when I'm calling them and recruiting them for this opportunity, that I don't know, 50% of the folks are like, dude, I need to know where I need to be. I need to know what I need to hit to make X, and it's interesting. But some of the other folks are like, man, that is like, it is like refreshing, to some.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
That is interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about it, honestly. So
I didn't either.
From a planning standpoint, I would say you have to have.
Well, that's what I said from like a projection perspective.
Exactly.
Like, that's the hardest thing for them to deal with. But he said, that's on me, not me, him. He's like, we can figure this out. I know historically what these sellers do annually. So if we have 4 salespeople in the country, 5 salespeople in the country, I know what they're doing essentially year after year. So I figure where we're going to be, They're in a really niche market though, as well, I could say. So like, they sell to chemical manufacturers.
I mean, so call it a quota. I would always want somebody to understand what the expectations are. So if it's not a quota, I really believe it's got to be something else where you can outline expectations and give somebody a benchmark to hit, and just so they know where the hell they are. And maybe that's not a quota, maybe it's some other metric, but yeah.
Yeah.
I am all about making sure that we're really transparent about expectations, and making sure people understand how we came up with where we have the expectations, and B, we help them understand how they're going to get there and what we're going to do to support them.
To me, that's important. But, then again, like doing what I do, but I have a goal. I have a goal for an annual goal. Knock on wood, really close to that this year. And dude, it's a stretch. It's a stretch. I mean, like it's a big nut personally. And then I kind of have like a company goal, but it's not a quota. You know what I mean? I've been doing this since as Woodbridge since 2012, I think. And, every year, it goes up a little bit. I'm going to be honest with you. I think I've only hit my goal because it's such a stretch, right? I think I hit it once in the years but I've been very close. There's not a ton of fluctuation. It's just really close, but thank God it's growing and growing and growing every year. So
I love it. And then your expectations get higher and higher and higher.
That's the deal, man. And by the way, my ups get up, my ups get higher, my lows get lower. So
you gotta smooth that out.
Yeah, I gotta keep it even. Man, what are you seeing in the industry? What's next? Like, I can think back to even 5-6 years ago, like shared office space, like all these things that are coming, new technologies. I mean, everybody's talking about AI and machine learning, and you guys are probably applying some of that to what you do today at Robin with regards to like, okay, company X, let's suggest this blueprint from an office space perspective, because this is, what others are doing. I don't know, but like, what are you seeing next in the industry?
Yeah, honestly, our industry is moving so fast right now because of COVID. So, Robin got its start in 2014, and prior to COVID, outside the US had adopted, EMEA and APAC had adopted flexible work to a bigger extent than the US did. COVID hit, people started going back to the office, and even during COVID, you had some people still using the office. We can see that in our data, but it really accelerated the value prop of flexible work. And I don't think I don't know anything, but I'm close to saying I know the world will never go back to 100% in the office at all time. You've got CEOs out there like Jamie Dimon and a couple other big name CEOs who have said, hey, I want everybody back in the office. The problem is that they're going to cost themselves a whole lot of employees, and recruiting is going to be really hard. And because now you're starting to segment an employee population who, there are a certain percentage of people who want to use the office 100% of the time. It's not a big percent.
It's totally not.
So
people that haven't had the experience or exposure to working from home that are now doing it. I spoke to a woman yesterday in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, like never worked at home before, but she figured it out. And she's like, listen, I ride the bus to work. It takes me an hour and a half to get there. It takes me an hour and a half to get home. That's 3 hours of productivity that she could have working from home. And she's like, this is crazy. What am I doing?
Yeah. So, and don't forget about the impact on the personal side, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, people learned how to work remotely. They learned how to juggle. All of a sudden, kids couldn't go to school. So you got the kids in the house, or if you're a caregiver, you have to be able, like, that's the important stuff. You can't lose sight. Companies can't lose sight of the fact that employees are working to support their personal lives and their personal goals. That's why they're doing what they're doing. And now that they've found a way to balance that, right? And again, some may be sick of it, but the ideal the ideal scenario is you allow employees to decide, how am I going to be most effective? Not just from a professional standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint, because you're just going to help feed people and keep them motivated by doing that. Not to mention the fact that if you're not going to allow that as an organization, there's a million other companies that are.
Oh, literally 1 million.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. What, you spoke about the peaks, the valleys, controlling the emotions throughout, but like, what do you think are the keys to success in enterprise software, Carl? What advice can you give our listeners beyond peaks, valleys, highs, lows?
Yeah. So you have to be self-actualized. This is going to go to something I had said earlier, where you've got to recognize this is an evolution. Your skill set is an evolution. The buying process isn't the same today as it was years ago, 5-10 years ago.
It's not the same today as it was a year and a half ago.
That's exactly right. So you have to always be on top of, what am I doing that's working? What am I doing that's not working? Where do I need help? I think you've got to, again, I go back to it. You can't be self-centered. You've got to be able to listen. I think one of the other things I would say is you can't over-focus as you're being self-actualized and you're trying to figure out how to make yourself better. You can't be over-focused on those negative areas that need the most help, because strengths are so much more of a multiplier. So one of the things that I talk to our managers about is, hey, identify 1 or 2 things somebody has to get better at, help them get better at it, but spend more time focusing on their strengths, because that's a bigger multiplier for folks.
Mm-hmm. And because they're already good at it. So they feel like they're successful.
Right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. And I think that's something that I think I would give as advice for somebody figuring out, how do I make a career out of enterprise sales? Learning how to negotiate. And the reason I say negotiate, right, that's one, most people will hear, learn how to negotiate. Okay, it is what it is. It's one small part of the sales cycle, but that's not what I mean when I say that. I ask people all the time. So I'll ask you, who wins a negotiation?
It really just depends on, to me, it depends on, I don't know how to answer this. This is not rehearsed, but to me, it depends on the individual outcome, on how like I feel versus you feel at the end of it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, honestly, my view is the person who quote unquote wins in a negotiation is the person with the most information 100% of the time. I don't care if you're in a personal buying or selling situation or professional buying or selling situation. Yep. The person with the most information wins every single time. And when you recognize that, you spend a lot of time trying to understand who you're dealing with, who you're talking to, what the problems are, what the implications of those problems are, why they're even talking to you. And as you get better at that, your negotiation skills will get a lot better, right? So that's why I use that as kind of a provocative way of saying, you just have to be human, and you have to be intellectually curious and want to actually help people, because they can go out and buy from anybody. We've got, God, since COVID, I saw an article it had 26 of our competitors listed, and that's not even all of them. Yeah. Wow. So people buy from people. You have to be able to listen. You have to be willing to help in some way and want to help people solve problems.
Makes a lot of sense. And it's probably one of the reasons why you've been so successful doing what you've been doing over the years. And adding to that,
I do. It's a big push for me. I love to listen, because I don't consider myself all that smart, and I learn something from everybody I talk to, and I will always learn more from the people surrounding me than they will ever learn from me.
Wow. You're working your butt off at Robin. You got 4 kids, 2 of which you're playing golf with at least once a week. You picked up golf. You got the bug.
Yeah.
Are there any other projects you're working on? I mean, clearly I can tell that you study the air quotes again, the game, right? You study what it takes to be a good leader.
Yeah.
Are you working on anything else out there?
I will say I am working more diligently today on being a good leader, but more importantly, a good human, trying to figure out like how to better myself in many different ways. I spend from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. every weekday morning. I'm a little lazy on weekends, but I specifically dedicate that hour to self-improvement, whether it's really understanding, like right now I'm reading a book called The $1 Trillion Coach about Bill Campbell, which by the way is I'm halfway through. It's one of my favorite books already because I really identify with this book and the leadership qualities and characteristics that Bill had.
I'll put a link to it in the.
Yeah, I honestly, I would highly recommend it for any leader of people in any way.
Okay.
It's really good book. So I really am working on myself and in different ways, and I'm challenging myself. And I wish I had done this when I was younger. I'm challenging myself to get better at understanding people and helping them. You know, I think I am really focused on Robin right now, and couldn't even think about doing anything different. When the time comes and I'm ready to when we are wildly successful and move on from this, I'm thinking about what I want to do after that. And I think there's some level of coaching that I just love the coaching aspects of everything of what I do.
You've got the mentality for it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And I also know, like we started this off talking about the story that I tell, the transparency, like, dude, let's talk about coaches specifically. I grew up playing for coaches that were unpredictable. They weren't transparent. And you think about that, it's just like planning your comfort level going back into an office and where I'm going to work in the office so that I feel more comfortable. You think about how much better your players would be if they could anticipate, what the coach was essentially understand what the coach was thinking. And it's that transparency thing. Some of these coaches don't talk, some of these coaches just set a path and essentially forget it. And you can't do that, especially today.
That's right.
And especially with these younger generations, you really can't. I mean, they need to know everything. They do. They need to know everything.
Yeah, yeah, and I totally agree. It's also, people ask all the time, what's the difference between a manager and a leader? And a leader gets somebody to. I can't say this enough. This book is phenomenal in articulating much better than I. At least, like I just really identify with it. So it's much better at articulating what the difference is between a manager and a leader. And if you look at Bill's career, he was a football coach. And so people will roll their eyes when they hear that. But then when you see what he did professionally with the same people-centric focus and helping people get better type focus, you see what he did for so many CEOs, Google, Apple, it's a phenomenal book. And I believe I'm only halfway through and every single word has been on point.
Oh, that's great. All right. Yeah. I'll put a link to it, but I'm looking for a book to read. It'll probably be in the spring, but that's
highly recommended.
All right. Hey, we're coming up to the end here and I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else? Is there anything I should have asked you and didn't during this podcast?
That's a tough one. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I really enjoyed the talk. I love talking about this stuff. So
yeah, I appreciate your time. Really do.
I appreciate the invite.
Where do you want, where is it best for our listeners to connect with you?
I would say carl.oliveri@robinpowered.com.
Okay.
Or on LinkedIn.
Okay. I'll put links to both of those in the comment section as well. Perfect. So man, I appreciate it. Really do. As always, I appreciate you and keep rocking out there.
Absolutely. It was great seeing you.
You as well.
All right, bud. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. All right.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
Is this thing still recording? Hang on one second. How do I do that? Stop.